Hi, my name is Kaylin Ravenzi, and I am so grateful to be sharing my story with you all here at the Be Proud and Be Bold event. I'm super excited and grateful for this. And even though you are all in London, England, I am in the States, and I'm super grateful for this opportunity. The title of my presentation is It Was Never About Me, a Mormon Mother's Journey of Love and Acceptance of Her Gay Son's Reality. And where I was several years ago, our son came out in 2012, and needless to say, it was a hard time. But the background for that situation for me is I was going through my own very personal journey of pain and anguish. I had abandoned myself and I had placed crazy unrealistic expectations on myself. And I put a lot of shoulds on my shelf. I should do this. I should do that. And it was just, I was in a terrible place. I was on long-term disability at the time because I had been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. I couldn't function. And so, of course, the timing was perfect for our son to come out and say that he was gay. And it took me to a place and a space that I wasn't quite sure how to navigate, how to handle, because I'd never been here before. And so this was part of my healing journey. My son's story was part of my healing journey. And what happened is he had gotten engaged to a young man, and this was now February of 2014. So fast forward 2 years later. And what was interesting is in our family, the Ravenzis, we kind of go big or go home. And so I get this call on February 12th from his fiance asking if he could have his hand in marriage for my son and their blessing. And I was mixed up in my own head. I got on this self-righteous, pompous soapbox and like, well, if you're going to do this, then you can't do this in our home. You can't do that in our home. And it was horrible. It was not a place or space that I should have been talking to or speaking of. But at the time, it's what I knew. And I was doing the best that I could with the information that I had. So I said yes, of course, but very reluctantly because I was still in this process of trying to figure out myself and how I fit into all of this, thinking that it was about me when it was never about me. So February 13th, 2014, our son and his fiance Cooper, they got engaged on national television on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And I went to work the next day, and all of my friends were like, hey, congratulations, we're so excited for your son, la, la, la. And I was like, great. And I just hadn't gotten to where I needed to be yet. So a couple of months had passed, and at this point, I still hadn't said congratulations. I still wasn't really there. And then my daughter, she comes up, and she's 2.5 years younger than our son, and she's like, Mom, if you don't do something now, you will lose your son forever. And that day was a day where Jesus had to come to Jesus meeting with me because I was the one with the problem. My son never had the problem. The problem was me. And throughout the day, several different things happened to where I knew I needed to go and talk with my son. And I called up my husband. I said, as soon as you get home, we are going to Zach's house and we have to make sure and get him his favorite treats because I'm going to bribe him to let him back in, let us into his home. So like any well-respecting mother, I got him his favorite treats, which are Pringles, sour gummy worms, and peanut M&Ms, and he loves to eat them all together. So we go to his house after my husband gets off work, and I knock on the door. And he opens the door, and he was a little sleepy because he had just kind of woken up from a little after work nap. And I asked him, I said, Zachary, I said, can you forgive me? I'm the one with the problem. And I am so sorry for the pain that I have caused you. It was never meant to be this way. Can you forgive me? And in that moment, he said, Mom, all I've ever wanted was to be able to be loved, liked, and accepted, and to be able to have the love of a companion, just like you and Dad have. And there was a click that happened in my head. And I realized that in order for me to forgive me for the stupidity that I had been looking at this realm, that it was my story when it was never about him. These are real things that my son was going through. And I was placing my story in his and his story in mine. When in actuality, they're two separate areas. And very, very forcefully, very lovingly, Jesus was like, yep, you see this here? This is him. I know that he's gay. Don't you know that he was created to be this beautiful human with all these gifts and talents? I know what his life is, just like I know what your life is. And things started to have a very big shift. And I started to see more clearly what was happening with not just my son, but with every other human being throughout the world. And this is what clicked for me. All of a sudden, I realized that I had been placing judgment and blame and shame and guilt and all of these and labeling, oh my word, on everyone else and not taking the responsibility for myself. And when I realized that I was never meant to judge, that my only job is to love unconditionally and to accept every single person for who they are and their reality, I felt like I had 5,000 pounds of pure, heavy, dense darkness weight lifted from me. And things began to get really clear. And I started to see everyone, not just my son or my daughter, but every single person on the face of the earth as these beautiful individuals. And this beautiful shift started to happen. And then things got really crystal clear. Last month, I was able to go to Winnipeg, Canada, and attend the Canadian Human Civil Rights Museum. And I realized that from the dawn of ages, we have been really, really unkind to every human being on the face of the earth. Have we genuinely, in any time, been kind and loving and wonderful? Maybe in small pockets and small doses throughout history. But this museum brought it to the message that was so pivotal for me to hear that day, was to bring it down to a place and space that life must change, that our perspectives must change, that we are meant to see that every human being has equal rights across the board to love who they want to love, to marry who they want to marry, to work where they want to work, to be treated with love and respect and kindness, and to create this oneness throughout the world. That's what this life is about. And I am so grateful for the experience and the blessing and the gift that not only my son, who was just the small doorway to open up to the rest of the world, of not just the LGBTQ plus community, but to every race, every gender, every ethnicity, every cultural background, every single human, because we are one. And when we celebrate our oneness, when we celebrate our humanness, this is where we receive such joy and happiness in our lives. Today, this is where I stand. I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm an author. And where I stand today is to create and have a movement called This Is Me. Just like the song from The Greatest Showman, from that movie, that song, This Is Me, celebrates the fact that it doesn't make a difference what we may look like if we have if we're a woman and we have a beard on our face, if we're super tall or super short or super fat or super thin, if we happen to love the same sex, or if we happen to be transgender, or if we happen to be bisexual, it doesn't make a difference. This is who we are, and we get to celebrate that, and we get to be able to live our life in such pure authenticity and showing up in such a beautiful way. I have a very wonderful friend, and she has an uncle, and this was the other glitcher for me. She has an uncle who passed away about 10 years ago, never living his true and happy self. His truest desires was that he was gay, and he left this earth never being able to deeply love or be loved because he never told anyone except one person. I can't have that. I can't stand to not let every human being have the opportunity to be loved. Yes, I may be Mormon. Yes, I may be a mom, but I'm a human. And I know whose and who I am. And I know that every single person on the face of the earth deserves to be loved. So this is what I invite you today to do. Be proud of who you authentically are. Be bold in your love of humanity. Be strong in the knowledge that you have, that you are freaking crazy awesome just because you have breath in your lungs and you breathe on this earth. That is what this life is all about. And it doesn't have any judgment. The only judgment that is placed is upon very limited mindsets. And those must be crushed. They must be loved open to where they can see the reality of all the beauty that is in every single human being on the face of this earth. So my invitation to you, be authentically who you are. Share it with all your love, light, and passion that is within your soul, that truest heart's desire that maybe you have been hiding. Don't hide it anymore. Show and share with all your might who you are, and let the chips fall where they may. Because when we show up with that pure love and authenticity, we are showing up as we have always been meant to live. And I leave this with you with all my love and gratitude, and wishing that I were there with you to give each and every one of you a big, huge, ginormous hug, and to celebrate you and your life and your purpose on this earth. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to hopefully connecting with many of you. Thank you.